The Station. With attitude. KCC Live.
Hi, you're listening to Amy on Out There on KCC Live. Our theme for our show today will be lesbians and Lesbian Day of Visibility. As always, we'll have plenty of people contributing to the show. We're going to talk a little bit about history, news, famous people, lesbians around the world, some bits about Stonewall, and then we're going to have a look at different groups and stuff as well. So stay tuned because there's definitely more after this.
This is KCC Live.
Hi, welcome back. You're listening to Amy on Out There on KCC Live. So as I said, our theme for the day is lesbians and Lesbian Day of Visibility. It's Lesbian Day of Visibility on the 26th of April. And we had a little look at Stonewall as well, who are campaigning for Lesbian Day of Visibility. Lesbian being the L in LGBT+, of course. I've had a few mixed reactions when I've been asking people through the week about Lesbian Day of Visibility. And I think the conclusion that most people came to was that when you've got a community that's been oppressed or forgotten, the days of visibility are important, and not just in the LGBT+ community either, or sector, in any sort of walk of life. If you've got a group of people that are being forgotten about or discriminated against or, oppressed, then we should have that day to be like, hey, this group is here, be aware of it, do something about it, help them. I think that is important. So from the Stonewall site, it says that Lesbian Day of Visibility is an important opportunity to celebrate the wonderful diversity in our community, as well as a chance to break some of the prevalent stereotypes about what it means to be LGBT. It also crucially gives a platform to strong lesbian role models whose stories make us all feel visible too. That's why this day matters. One thing I'm reminded of on this day is the common misconception that as a lesbian you're either butch or femme and never both or anything in between. This is not only frustrating but can also be degrading and demeaning. These identities should obviously be celebrated but not forced on people. I definitely agree with that. I remember reading, it was like a meme or something like that a few years ago. And it was saying, asking which, in a lesbian couple, asking which is the man and the woman is like asking which chopstick's the fork. And it stuck with me because I was like, oh, that is actually a really good way of describing that. Being in my previous relationship was with a female. So I suppose it's what you call a lesbian relationship, even though I don't personally identify as a lesbian. And all the time you get asked questions like that, or people would just assume you weren't together, or you were mates, or sometimes you were sisters and things like that. And I think Lesbian Day of Visibility definitely helps with that. You don't always have a man and a woman. It's not how it works. Two people can be feminine, two people can be not feminine. It doesn't matter. And, you can be a lesbian and you don't have to fit in with them stereotypes. You can be pretty androgynous. You can be whatever you want to be. It's how you identify. So it goes on to say, when people know or presume your sexuality, they often take one look at you and decide what stereotype best fits. Definitely. My partner used to get called butch or the dyke or whatever, because I hate that word dyke, I really do. Because she wore shirts and not a lot of makeup, but did have long hair and stuff like that. So, that didn't fit with people's stereotypes. They didn't like that. And I got called the girly girl and things like that because I liked makeup and, I like dressing up. But, I don't fit in with that stereotype all the time either. Sometimes I do, but not all the time. When I think about the world I want to live in, I think about the need for strong lesbian role models in all walks of life. Real people with complex and varied identities. Growing up, I had no one to reflect back who I was at school, in my community or on TV. This can make you feel your identity isn't valid. It made me hide. Today, my life is very different. I'm able to be myself, but I still want to see more lesbian role models and be seen as one too. Young people will continue to go through the challenges of self-discovery and will always need to see a world in which their identities are represented and role models exist. They will need to feel valid and appreciated. You can stand up as a role model. It is important to feel that you are part of a community. Feeling alone like you are the only one can be debilitating. In April, I'm proud to celebrate the strong lesbian women in my life. These are all different and are not what you think they are. They are wonderful and diverse. You can stand up as a role model to help send the message to young people discovering their own identity that they are not alone. This I definitely agree with. There is a video as well. I'm going to play the audio from the video from the Stonewall site. Definitely check out the charity because they're fantastic, the work they do. And, you know, that's the thing. We need to let the younger people know, the younger generation know that it's okay. They don't have to worry. If they feel the need to come out, if they don't feel the need to come out, it's okay. You shouldn't have to fear that. You shouldn't have to worry about your own identity. It can be confusing, but that's still okay. Anyway, this is the audio from the video, and after that we're going to have a song, and then I'll be back with you because we're going to talk a little bit about history and the history behind lesbians and where they've been mentioned. Stay tuned, more after this.
The Station with Attitude, KCC Live.
Hi, welcome back. You're listening to Amy on Out There on KCC Live. Today our theme is Lesbian Day Visibility and Lesbians, the L Word if you like, which is a TV series that I very much enjoyed, if I do say so myself. But yeah, so lesbians and lesbianism, a lot of it comes into women's rights as well. So there's also feminism mixed up in there a lot of the time, not always, just a lot of the time. So feminism is the advocacy of women's rights on the grounds of equality of the sexes, and I am very much a feminist. I believe that I should be equal to everybody, very much so. And things like the Me Too movement as well has been really important for women, not just lesbian women, all women, to be able to discuss and talk about the things that they've experienced and to make that more visible. So I think that does tie in as well with Lesbian Day Visibility, because you know what, it happens. These things happen across all spectrums, all sexualities, all genders. The hashtag Me Too movement just highlighted the fact that there is such an issue with sexual harassment and things like that going on with, again, all sexes, not just female, male as well. But again, I think that also ties in with Lesbian Day of Visibility, because I think it's also Women's Day of Visibility as well. Anyway, so I asked Emily to give us a little bit of information about Lesbian Day.
Today started in the US in 2008 with the aim of celebrating lesbian life, culture and its diversity. You might ask, what exactly is lesbian life, culture and diversity? Well, lesbian life is just like a straight person's. We wake up, we go to work or studies, we make some food, we come home and go to bed. It's not too wild. But this normal life is not represented in the media. We're always in a love triangle or secretly straight, or one of us dies alone and single. This is what needs changing. Facebook, the 8th largest tech company in the US, their diversity report in August 2017 showed that women make up 35% of the company's global workforce. The company is also one of the first to collect data regarding its LGBTQ+ employee representation. So based on a voluntary service in the US workforce, which had a 67% participation rate, 7% of employees self-identified as lesbian, gay, bisexual, queer, transgender or asexual. That's still pretty minuscule. 2/3 of lesbian women have experienced discrimination in the workplace, research has found. The study, conducted by the British LGBT Awards, interviewed 1,200 lesbian and bisexual women in the UK to analyse their experience at work. 64% said that they had experienced some kind of negative treatment, including sexual discrimination, inappropriate language, lack of opportunity or bullying at the workplace. This is why lesbian visibility is vital, as it ensures people who aren't lesbian to know that these stereotypes of butch/femme lesbians is false, and that any other group of people who cannot and provide role models for other women. This is according to theindependent.co.uk. Homosexuality is found throughout the African continent, just as anywhere else in the world. However, out of the 55 states recognised by the United Nations, African Union, or both, the International Gay and Lesbian Association stated that in 2015 homosexuality was outlawed in 34 African countries. In Sudan, southern Somalia and northern Nigeria, homosexuality is punishable by death. Gay and lesbian travellers to Africa should use discrimination. Public displays of affection should be generally avoided, advice which applies to both homosexual and heterosexual couples. However, the most gay-friendly African country is Cape Verde, and lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender people in South Africa enjoy the same rights as non-LGBT. The Coalition of African Lesbians is a feminist, activist and pan-Africanist network of 14 organisations in 10 countries in sub-Sahara Africa committed to advancing freedom, justice and bodily autonomy for all women in the African continent and beyond. The coalition is committed to raising consciousness amongst and strengthening activism and leadership of lesbian women on sexuality and gender and its intersections. They believe in the power of collective action. They view themselves as part of a social movement, including the women's movement, the sexual and reproductive rights movement, and the economic justice movement. There are plenty of groups around the world, specifically in the UK, who support lesbian women. One of them in Liverpool is the Liverpool Guild LGBT. It's a campaign in the University of Liverpool Students' Union. They campaign locally and nationally to improve the situation of LGBT people and deal with any instance of discrimination or homophobia that Liverpool students may face. As well as this, there's the Mardi Gras Foundation, which is a gay/straight alliance, focusing on promoting inclusion, equality and diversity across the community. Another group is the Bolton LGBT Partnership. It's a network of key stakeholders in the Bolton area, and the partnership aims to reduce hate crime, increase LGBT inclusion, awareness, workplace equality, and access to service provisions in the town.
The Station with Attitude, KCC Live.
Hi, welcome back. You're listening to Amy on Out There on KCC Live. Our theme for today is Lesbian Day of Visibility and Lesbians and Lesbian History. So, a little bit of information there from Emily. Thank you so much for telling us about that. I'd found a little sort of newspaper article as well on the pool by Nichi Hodgson, and it's entitled Lesbian Sex Was Never Illegal in the UK, but Women Fought for Visibility. It says that if you've ever wondered whether lesbian sex has ever been illegal in Britain, the answer is no. And why not? Well, the myth goes that it's because Queen Victoria simply didn't believe lesbians existed. Sorry, Queen Vic, you were wrong. Of course, the truth isn't so straightforward. In fact, it's more likely that gay women were left off the statute books because lawmakers didn't know how to explain how girls got it onto the Queen. Despite private male homosexual acts being made illegal in 1885, with the introduction of the Criminal Law Amendment Act, gay relationships between women weren't made illegal, but rather weren't really acknowledged at all, and the case of lesbian invisibility began. We've known that women have got it on with one another for centuries. There is evidence in manuscripts, prayer books, diaries, tapestries and paintings. The fact that girl-on-girl sex was never punishable by death in England and Wales, as male-on-male intercourse was, actually allowed many women to slip under the radar. London was ever the scene of secret drag balls, and gay women continued to find ways to correspond and meet private parties and saloons, right through until the 1920s, when there was something of an explosion in visibility of women loving women. And at that point, the patriarchal powers that were finally forced to take notice. In the 1920s, there was a noticeable shortage of men. The First World War had killed off some 700,000 soldiers and left many more injured or shell-shocked. Some women had sought solace with one another during the lonely years that continued these relationships even when the war was over. In bars, women weren't afraid of being seen dancing close to their girlfriends, with men so scarce it was already a common sight. In 1921, MPs voted to criminalise sexual acts between women, but the House of Lords rejected the proposal on the basis that it had glamorised lesbianism. Secondly, the 1920s was a period of great social mobilisation, throwing women out of newfound independent means together in ways they'd never known before. Young women would have previously stayed in their home village and married a man from down the road, now moved around the country to work in the flourishing cities. Wartime had given women a taste and aptitude for men's jobs, and many took up jobs as secretaries, journalists and shop assistants, moving into digs with other women, nicknamed the dining out girls by the Daily Mail. They had more disposable income than ever before and took full advantage of all the entertainment that City offered them, which also included jazz clubs and cocaine and alcohol. And of course, the war had put paid to chaperones, meaning nobody could run home to their mothers, neighbours or prospective husbands to report on their behaviour. And more lesbians were coming out of the closet, even if only in private correspondence. When the scientist and campaigner Mary Stopes published her seminal sex advice book, Married Love, she received thousands of letters from lesbians eager for relationship advice, which she refused to give. But the publication and circulation of novels such as Virginia Woolf's Orlando, Elizabeth Bowden's The Hotel, and Wycliffe Hall's seminal The Well of Loneliness reached the same audience of women desperate to know that they were not alone in their feelings for the fairer sex. Now, with the ambiguity of erotica and the LGBTQI sex advice on the net, it's nearly impossible to imagine a time when most people couldn't read a fact about sapphic love, let alone the fiction. But this explains why novels that did explore it had such an impact. Such was the power of literature that after her book was published in 1928, Radcliffe Hall soon found herself embroiled in an obscenity court case. The well of loneliness, it was claimed, was depraving and corrupting the women that read it. All copies of the book were destroyed. The trial was supported by Sir William Henry Wilcox, the government's chief medical advisor, who proclaimed lesbian sex a danger to the well-being of a nation. So why didn't the government go ahead and outlaw it? They decided that, rather than criminalising sex acts between women, they would be better ignored. Lieutenant Colonel Moore Barbazan claimed that the only solution to the endemic was to lock up lesbian women in asylums or impose the death penalty. In 1921, MPs voted 148 to 53 to criminalise sex acts between women, but in the end the House of Lords rejected the proposal on the basis that it would glamorise lesbianism and make it even more attractive to impressionable young women. But it already had its impact. By the time the obscenity trial was over, Radcliffe Hall's book had come to an end. 5,000 gay women had written to her expressing their gratitude for what she created. The book, despite the hostile political climate, had finally made them visible to the authorities, but it had also made them visible to one another. And that, in the best possible way, could not be undone. So, that was an interesting article. I'm sorry, it was a bit long-winded, but I found it really interesting. I never even thought about how things like war could affect relationships and how it made people a little bit more visible and it gave women a little bit more freedom to be who they are as well. Anyway, we've got Dom coming up next. He's going to give us a little bit of information about the ancient Greeks and lesbianism, so stay tuned because there's more after this.
This is KCC Live.
So when we think about history and the LGBT movement, we talk about things like the Spartan army, who was made up of all men who were lovers with each other and were much better fighters because of it, but we don't really discuss LGBT women of history. And there's things like Lesbos, the island. Lesbos was named after the supposed queen who was the first lesbian, which is where we get the name lesbian. Then you also think of Sappho from ancient Greece, who was a poet whose work depicts her discussion of her attraction to women and her sexual desires towards women, as well as just as emotional desires, and those kinds of things aren't talked about. And obviously there's also like ancient myths like the Amazonian warriors, who were all women who were lovers and LGBT, and we don't really focus on that a lot, but we do focus on obviously ancient history, masculinity in Rome, depictions of the male physique naked, but a lot of the time when you see those same statues of women, they're often also covered up in togas, in cloth, and we don't really focus on that aspect of things, and it's just one more way of not vilifying, but almost pushing women to the side. Like when you think about LGBT statistics, it's always LGB and then the T, and women sort of are pushed to the side, whereas there's a lot more resources and a lot more focus on gay men and HIV, and it's always focused on men. We don't really give that focus to women. Even in the LGBT community, women are still sort of sidetracked, and I think that's something that we do need to look at changing.
This is KCC Live.
Hi, welcome back. You're listening to Amy on Out There on KCC Live. This is our Lesbian Day of Visibility show. Thank you so much, Dom, for giving us that information there on the ancient Greeks. Also coming up, we've got a little bit of history of a timeline as well from Laura. So she had a little look into LGBT plus and lesbian history for us, and this is what she found and had to say.
We found in history to be lesbians. One of the earliest ones I could find was a Greek named Sappho, who was born on the Greek island of Lesbos around 1615 BC. She was a poet who often wrote about her yearning for women. Her name and place of birth have become synonymous with women who love women. The next person I could find in history, according to HuffPost.com, was Queen Christina of Sweden. This member of the Swedish royal family was queen in 1644. Though she renounced the throne a decade later, Queen Christina is widely considered to be a lesbian by her photographers. Jane Addams. Jane Addams was one of the pioneering ladies of the women's suffragette movement and was rumoured but never confirmed to be a lesbian. She founded the Hull House in Chicago in 1889 and the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom in 1915. She also won a Nobel Peace Prize in 1931. The next person I could find was Rita Mae Brown, who wrote one of the most significant lesbian-themed novels in history called Ruby Fruit Jungle, published in 1973. The activist, New York Times bestselling author and feminist icon who says she was kicked out of the National Organization for Women fought to get the women's movement to accept lesbians. Gladys Bentley was a blues singer who reportedly married a woman in 1931. It was very public. The next person was Barbara Gittings, hailed as being one of the longest-serving and most fearless activists in the lesbian community. She founded the New York chapter of the White Daughter of Billis, picketed the White House in the 60s and counselled gay people who had been discriminated on by the government. She sadly died in 2007. The next person I found was Audre Lorde, who was a self-professed black lesbian feminist mother, poet and warrior. She fought against injustices that marginalised people through the mid-20th century through her revealed library works. Despite many trying to silence her, she fearlessly embraced her identities. The next two women I found online and was surprised that they were so famous, but yet their sexuality was unknown. The first person I found was Florence Nightingale, who revolutionised the medical profession. Florence, although not very well known, loved three women very passionately and even pretended to be one of her lover's brothers so that she could be around it all the time. The next woman in history I found was Eleanor Roosevelt, who was mostly known for being married to the President Theodore Roosevelt. But after he died and her relationship was classed as an intellectual and political partnership, went on to form a long-term relationship with Lorena Hickok, or Hick, as she was known to friends. Her relationship had a major impact on Eleanor's career, and her objectivity was questioned as she got closer to Eleanor.
The Station with Attitude, KCC Live.
Hi, welcome back. You're listening to Amy on Out There on KCC Live. So thank you so much, Laura, for our little timeline there. Moving away now from history, we're just going to go have a little bit of news that's going on nowadays. So I had a little look on Pink News, and one of their headlines is 2 in 5 LGBT plus students have hidden who they are at university. This isn't just about lesbians, it's about the whole LGBT plus spectrum, but I thought it was actually quite important. So 2 in 5 LGBT plus students have hidden their identity on campus in fear they may be discriminated against, an eye-opening poll has shown. According to figures released by Stonewall, around 42% of LGBT plus students said that they have hidden their gender identity or sexual orientation while at university in case they received a hostile reaction from their fellow students or teaching staff. And a third of the 522 LGBT plus students surveyed said that they've been targeted with abuse or negative comments because they're LGBT plus. This is something that I just think is awful. And I think a lot of people as well don't realise how much words can hurt. So dropping words like faggot, dyke, things like that, they can hurt, especially if they're used with malice. Misgendering people as well, that can hurt, especially if a person has specifically said to you, I am female, please use female pronouns. I am male, please use male pronouns. If you go out of your way then to use the wrong pronouns, that can have some serious emotional effect. It can cause some serious turmoil. It's not just a slip up. Like, if people make mistakes, usually people understand. I've done it myself. I've misgendered people. I've apologised. I've corrected myself. And honestly, I've never had an issue. The person has always said, it's okay, please try and use my preferred pronouns. And that's been fine. You know, I think I was more mortified that I'd managed to do that. Anyway, so it goes on to say, trans students appear to be faced with the most hostility on campus. Whilst almost a quarter of trans students, 23%, are not addressed with their correct names and pronoun, 7% have been physically attacked by other students or university staff members. 1 out of 7 trans students polled have considered dropping out of their course because of the level of harassment and discrimination they have faced. That's not okay. Everyone should have the right to an education, no matter what their gender or orientation. It doesn't matter. The university email system will not use my preferred name unless I change it by default, an option currently unavailable to me for complex reasons, and so I am forced to use my dead name attached to every email and computer document I produce, even on my own software, says Alex, a 22-year-old trans student in London. Again, I can't get into the sort of details of that one because I don't know enough about it, but surely a person should be able to use their preferred name. In the university, people have refused to refer to me with the proper pronouns because they don't see me as a woman, despite me fully presenting myself as such, said Lisa, a 21-year-old trans student in Wales. Again, this is heartbreaking. People should be able to be who they want to be. Do you know what, right? It doesn't hurt anyone. It doesn't. What does it matter to you if another person chooses to dress or present themselves in a certain way? It doesn't, unless, they're making you uncomfortable by, perhaps flashing their body parts at you, but that's about it. It's not about you. It's about the person and how they feel comfortable. As a woman, I have the right, if I so wish, to wear a skirt, to wear a dress, to wear trousers, to wear a blouse, to wear a t-shirt. I can wear what I like. And I'm a woman, I'm a cis female woman, and that should be the same for any person, no matter what. Anyway, the article goes on to say I've not worn a dress once for the last couple of months due to the weather. As such, I've been seen as not trans enough. I've been told that I'm undermining the image of women by a number of students, and it has caused me to feel unable to socialise with my peers, she added. Do you know what? That makes me so sad, and I am so sorry that person's had to go through that. University should be an exciting time when all students can learn, grow and enjoy their independence, but our university report shows that discrimination and abuse continually to negatively impact the university experience for many lesbian, gay, bi and trans students. They often don't feel confident reporting incidents to staff, which means these incidents are left unchecked, said Ruth Hunt, Chief Executive of Stonewall. Do you know what? We need education. I honestly believe we need more education for the staff and the students. We need to talk about these things. You talk about it, you make it open and honest, and then you take out any stigma that's left in it. Once a person understands something, it's a lot easier to help, and I do honestly believe that we do need more education rolling out. The situation is especially concerning for trans students who face physical violence and are often not addressed by staff with their correct name and pronoun. This is unacceptable, she added. I definitely agree with you, Ruth. LGBT plus students form an ethnic minority, also face significantly higher discrimination, with 37% stating they were excluded by other students in comparison to 28% of all LGBT students. That is not right, is it? Come on, people. The statistics are also particularly troubling when it comes to bisexual students, with 22% of these surveyed feeling uncomfortable about disclosing their orientation. I think with bisexual people as well, there's a lot of stigma still attached there. People don't believe you can be truly bisexual. Honestly, usually when I'm trying to explain my own orientation to people that aren't really sort of down with the lingo, if you like, I normally start at the, well, you know what bisexual is, sort of base. I personally identify as pansexual. I like who I like. It doesn't really matter to me what their gender is or their genitals. I just like them for them. And the best way I've found of trying to explain it to people is by starting by saying, well, you know what bisexual is. And a lot of people seem to have this, oh, you just haven't found the right man yet or the right woman yet. And I'm just like, no. That's not how that works. I'm not attracted to male or female as such, or genitalia or anything like that. I can appreciate when someone looks good aesthetically. That's fine. That's, good for you. But ultimately, for me to be attracted to someone, I need to get to know them. Once I get to know them, then I'm attracted to them. But a lot of stigma seems to still be attached by saying I'm bisexual. People just do not get it. Anyway, the end of this article says, while many universities have made great strides to support their LGBT plus students, the research shows that there's still more to do. By working together with LGBT students, university can continue to build more welcoming learning environments so every LGBT person is accepted without exception, Hunt added. Again, I definitely agree. We need to build that. I know that Liverpool University's got various things in place and they're great for their LGBT plus visibility and support as well. And I'm proud to be part of a city where the university is that inclusive. But we definitely need to roll that out against schools, against colleges, against workplaces, not just universities. We need it across the board. People need to be educated. A lot of the time, when it comes to, especially when I'm talking about people who are trans, usually in my day-to-day life, these things come up and I'm the sort of, usually the more clues up out of the crowd. And I'll be like, right, let me explain this to you and we'll get down to it. And the bottom line, I'm like, right, I'll explain about it. And then once people are actually educated and understand that, people feel a certain way and want to be that certain way, they're okay with it. And a lot of it is that it's not being educated and not understanding what it is that they're looking at, and then that breeds almost fear, if you like, and fear can breed contempt, which is why we need to educate and talk openly about it. Anyway, I will stop. I will get off my soapbox. I will stop preaching, and after this song we're going to have a little bit more information from Pink News and about a Kenyan film that has recently been released. So listen up, because there is more after this.
This is KCC Live.
Hi, welcome back. You're listening to Amy on Out There on KCC Live. So basically we're doing Lesbian Visibility today, and I found a story about a film in Kenya, and I think it highlights the difference between sort of our sort of Western media and the Kenyan media and their sort of way of thinking. And it's from Pink News. It's titled "Kenya Banned Lesbian Film Because Characters Didn't Show Remorse for Being Gay." Now, Emily touched on this a little bit earlier about how difficult it can be being in the LGBT community in Africa, and we're going to talk a little bit about it later as well, so I won't inundate you with loads of details. But this article says the director of a gay-themed Kenyan film has allegedly said that it was banned after she refused the censor's request for gay characters to show remorse. Rafiki, which means friend in Kiswahili, is about two Kenyan girls who fall in love and must contend with the country's stigma towards homosexuality. The film is set to debut at Cannes Film Festival next month, but the Kenyan Film Classification Board last week denied permission for the film's release in Kenya. Rafiki director Winari Kahiu has since spoken about the decision. Speaking to The Hollywood Reporter, Kahiu alleged that the KFCB has initially signed off on the film script and only decided to ban the film after she rejected abrupt demands to give the film a sad ending. She said, "They asked me to change the ending of the film because they did not feel that the end was remorseful enough. They did not ask me to change any scenes of intimacy. If they had asked us to reduce the intimacy because of classification, that would have been one thing, and we would have gladly done that. However, the change that they were asking for was one for the ending to be changed to make it less hopeful. I refuse to make a sad ending, and I refuse to make the characters remorseful, and I do not believe in depicting images of Africans as sad and despairing or desperate. That is not my style, and it's not my ethos." Well done, lady, if I do say so myself. She still plans to debut Rafiki at Cannes, adding, "We intend to celebrate the film, and it will be a film in exile." The decision to ban the film is alleged to have been made by KFCB chief Ezekiel Muta, an extreme opponent of LGBT rights. Muta made no secret of his animosity towards the project on social media, retweeting hundreds of messages attacking the sinful film and rallying against homosexuality. I find it so sad that such sort of blatant homophobia is okay and is expected in Africa. It's just awful. I can't imagine what it must be like having to live with that, being a member of the LGBT plus community. The KFCB wrote, "Rafiki should not be distributed, exhibited within the Republic of Kenya. Anyone found in possession will be in breach of the law." The KFCB spokesperson, Nelly Mulaka, later added, "Our culture and laws recognise family is at the basic unit of society. We cannot therefore allow lesbian content to be accessed by children in Kenya." Oh, do you know what, right? It seems to be the age-old argument for homophobia. It really does. Won't somebody please think of the children? And I'm like, are you kidding? Are you seeing the quality of sort of family life that children can have in an LGBT plus household? Do you know what? My children have been brought up around LGBT plus people since they were babies. My children are some of the most accepting, kind, sweet and loving children that you will ever meet. They sort of meet with their gender schemas, if you like. They are both cis for their sort of genders. Nobody's turned them particularly camp or gay or anything like that. They just are who they are, and they accept and love people no matter what. Children, they don't care. Honestly, they don't care. All they see is love. They don't care if it's male and male, female and female. They may ask questions, but they don't feel anything is right or wrong, and it's time that people understood this and got on board with it. Anyway, it says the film synopsis reads, Kenya and Ziki long for something more. Despite the political rivalry between their families, the girls resist and remain close friends, supporting each other to pursue their dreams in a conservative society. What love blossoms between them, the two girls will be forced to choose between happiness and safety. Kai, who previously attacked the decision to ban her film when LGBT content from overseas is available on online streaming platforms, she told Reuters, I'm very disappointed because Kenyans already have access to watch films that have LGBT content on Netflix and in international films shown in Kenya and permitted by the classification board itself. So to then just ban a Kenyan film because it deals with something already happening in society just seems like a contradiction. I must admit I'm inclined to agree with her. Kenyan's President, Uhuru Kenyatta, recently insisted that being gay is not acceptable and not agreeable in Kenyan culture, and that LGBT plus rights are of no importance in his country. That is so sad. Speaking to CNN's Christian Amanpour earlier this month, the leader said that he wanted to be very clear that he would not decriminalise homosexuality. I want to be very clear, I will not engage in a subject that is not of any major importance to the people of the Republic of Kenya. This is not an issue that you'd want to put it, of human rights. This is an issue of society. It's an issue of our own base and our own culture as people. I'm really sorry to break it to you, Mr. Kenyan President, but I think your people in your country probably are LGBT plus. They're just too scared to admit it. That's my opinion anyway. Coming up, we're going to look at women to celebrate. So if you keep listening, keep tuned after this song. There's more after this.
The Station with Attitude, KCC Live.
Hi, welcome back. You're listening to Amy on Out There on KCC Live. So I found a news article and it was 11 remarkable women to celebrate Lesbian Visibility Day. It's big news again. Big news is great for LGBT plus news, I should add. So among the various events and anniversary on the LGBT awareness calendar, Lesbian Visibility Day takes place on the 26th of April. In truth, the origins of the day appear mysterious, rumbling through the internet over the past few years as it's been taken upon various campuses and by groups around the world. As subcultures, movements and identities cross over in the LGBT plus sphere, fears have been expressed of a perceived erasure of lesbian spaces and the need to preserve and celebrate lesbian culture, distinctive as it is from other gay, bi, trans and queer areas. While, of course, an individual's own definition of their sexuality is varied and the rainbow in the spite of Celebration Lesbian Visibility today, we list 11 remarkable high-profile women below. So I'm going to read those for you. Number 1 is Ellen Page. Ellen Page revealed that she was gay in 2014 in an emotional speech to the Human Rights Campaign, and the actress has been an international advocate for LGBT rights ever since. Last year, she stayed in the closet. Hate her career more than she said staying in the closet hurt her career more than coming out as gay did, before making an impassionate plea for LGBT community to live freely, love freely and not be afraid. Plus she confronted a homophobic preacher on the streets of Washington DC during Trump's inauguration ceremony. Interesting. Number 2 is Raven Simone. Raven burst into our screens when she was just a toddler in the sixth series of The Crosby Show, and went on to notch up a load of movie and TV roles over the next 25 years. She seemingly came out in 2012 when she applauded the legalisation of same-sex marriage, saying, "I can finally get married." She later issued an official statement saying that her sexual orientation belonged to her and her the person she is dating, not the public. But then in a segment on The View on March 2016, on the classy ways which women can reject men, she simply said, "I'm a lesbian, so good luck, and no, I won't do that." Number 3, Penny Wong. Penny Wong was the first member of the Australian Labour Party to come out while still sitting in Parliament. She continues to be a leading voice in the ongoing fight for marriage equality in Australia as the first lesbian leader of the oppression of Senate. Vicky Beechin. Christian rock star Vicky Beechin came out as gay in 2014. She continued to discuss the struggles that she experienced with her sexuality, as well as the challenges faced by religious members of the LGBT community and campaigns for more LGBT rights in the church. Ruby Rose. Australian-born Ruby Rose was one of the first celebrities to come out as gender fluid. The model turned actress turned role model broke through to the mainstream as her appearance as Stella in Orange is the New Black. Orange is the New Black, I should add as well, is a great one for lesbian representation because it normalises female relationships, and that's how it should be. Since then, she's talked about feeling empowered by her sexuality and how she considered gender reassignment surgery when she was younger. Number 6 is Wanda Sykes. In 2008, Wanda Sykes married her female partner, Alec Niederbalski, and came out publicly as a lesbian during a same-sex marriage rally regarding California's Proposition 8 a month later. It just came out, she said, a few years on of her unexpected public declaration. "I've just gotten married, so instead of speaking as a supporter, I was speaking as one of the victims. It just happened. I didn't even think about it." Number 7 is Angela Eagle. The UK's Labour Party MP Angela Eagle made history in 2015 when she became the first openly gay woman to go head-to-head at the dispatch box during Prime Minister's questions. She is only the second openly gay lesbian MP, following the footsteps of Maureen Colquhoun. She was a government minister from 2009 to 2010 and tried and failed to become the first female Labour Party leader in 2016, withdrawing just 8 days after launching her challenge to Jeremy Corbyn. Number 8 is Kate McKinnon. What a 2016 for Saturday Night Live's outstanding performer. The comedian, who in 2012 became the show's first openly gay cast member, stole the show in Ghostbusters before she stole our heart in the post-election episodes of SNL, singing the late Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah in her guise as Hillary Clinton. She has also attracted plaudits from her spot-on portrayals of the homophobic Jeff Sessions and Kellyanne Conway. Oh, and she won and then lost an Emmy. Jill Soloway. Soloway, the creative genius behind Transparent, came out in 2015. In September, she compared Donald Trump to Hitler after picking up her Emmy for Outstanding Director of a Comedy Series for Transparent. She also told viewers, "Topple the patriarchy," as she left the stage. Number 10 is Hannah Hart. The lesbian YouTuber has repeatedly spoken out about her journey to accepting her sexuality through her channel My Heartio, which now has 2.5 million subscribers. This work promoting equality and acceptance for the LGBT community resulted in her being honoured in September with an LGBTQ media monitoring organisation GLAAD Davidson/Valentini Award. Her relationship with fellow YouTuber Ingrid Nielsen, who has 4 million subscribers, also hit the headlines as the pair spread a message of LGBT celebration. The 30-year-old Californian has even more time to write a book about her life called Buffering, Ushered Tales of a Life Fully Loaded, which covers her slowly coming to terms with being gay. Number 11, Ellen DeGeneres, who is my favourite of the lesbians. I love Ellen. I think she's fantastic, and I think she's done so much good work for the LGBT community. Plus, she's friends with Obama, and they've got like this little friendship going on. I love her. I really do. Personally, just love her. The popular TV host and LGBT advocate has talked about the fear she felt before coming out. "I didn't think I was going to come out, period. I didn't think I'd be coming out on a show, ever." Over the past year, she has banned a homophobic singer from her show, surprised an Orlando shooting survivor with Katy Perry, and even made George W. Bush seem almost human. I really do love Ellen. I know someone else who really likes Ellen, and that is Dean. So Dean's got a little bit of information to give us as well. So after this...
The Station with Attitude, KCC Live.
I think that not just around the time of Lesbian Day of Visibility, but just in general as a society, we need to remember not to put people into boxes, not to categorise people based purely on the sexuality, and make them feel that people have to be a certain way to fit in. I think, yeah, we are always going to have stereotypes. It's part of human nature. But you know what? We don't have to put those outdated stereotypes onto everyone we meet from a certain group, whether that be, you know, sexuality, race, gender. Not everyone is the same and everyone is different in some way. One person I feel is particularly inspirational from the lesbian community is Ellen DeGeneres. I love Ellen. I think she's so funny. She's witty. She's just kind. I think she's such a good influence, not just on the LGBT community, but just to society in general. I think she's such a kind-hearted person. But I think also she came out at a time when it probably wasn't as accepted as it is in society today. And I think that was a really brave move to make for her. Obviously, Ellen isn't the only one. It's just she's really well known and stuff. But I do feel like back in, I think, the 90s when she came out, maybe, you know, homosexuality was legal, but it definitely wasn't as accepted and it wasn't as talked about as it is today. And I think we've come a long way since then. I do think we still have a long way to go until, you know, things are finally accepted. You know, it's no different to heterosexual relationships. But I'd just say to anyone out there who is coming to terms with the sexuality, or, you know, struggling to come to terms with it, you know, is in fear of coming out in case of rejection and people not accepting them, I would say that the world is changing. The world is becoming a better place in terms of acceptance. And I think that people are starting to realise that it's okay to be different and it's okay to be who you are.
This is KCC Live.
Hi, welcome back. You're listening to Amy on Out There on KCC Live. So thank you so much there, Dean, for telling us about your inspirational LGBT plus woman. We also have Rich, who's going to tell us a little bit about lesbian visibility in theatre. For those of you that don't know, Richie does a musical theatre show on Monday night on KCC Live, which is always, if you like musical theatre, definitely worth a tune in. So this is what Richie had to say.
And gay women portrayed in theatre. There is not a lot of characters that are lesbian and gay in theatre, but you do find when there are gay women in theatre, they are very much stereotypical cliche lesbians. So, for example, in Hairspray, there were two gay women in that musical, which was on in Broadway in 2002. You've got the gym teacher and the prison matron, but they're very stereotypical. They're very much stereotypes of what gay women were traditionally thought to be. The tone of the show is consistent with the audience feels at ease at laughing. You know, they're very much, you know, laughing at the very stereotypical butch lesbian. You've then also got in Legally Blonde, which was on in Broadway in 2007, and London at the Savoy in 2009. You've got Enid Hoops, who is a very, you know, I'm being for women's liberation, and she is very much seen as a lesbian character. Another surprising one, which I thought about, and I've asked people and go, do you think this character is a lesbian? They go, well, I didn't think of it. But Matron Manor Morton in Chicago, which was originally done in 1975. But I initially didn't realise that this was a lesbian character, but she is. And she even has the lines like, when you're good to mama, and sings this tit for tat about the relationship with an all-female inmate, and when you're stroking mama, mama's stroking you. I never got lesbian from it, but apparently it's a lesbian character. There are lesbian characters in other musicals like Falsettos, which I don't believe has ever been produced in the West End. You've also got The Colour Purple. Now, big lesbian characters in shows, you've also got Rent, which has a lesbian couple with a happier ending which for rent is quite unusual. The actions begin when Maureen, having already left Mark for a relationship with Joanne, and even prior to that. But then one of the big revolutionary lesbian musicals is Fun Home, which is going to be on in London this summer. I'm going to see it, quite excited. One of the most surprising lesbian characters and lesbian relationships even in a musical theatre in the UK was from Bad Girls the Musical. Yes, Bad Girls was actually a musical. It ran for just under a month at the Garrick Theatre in 2007 and is of course a musical adaptation of the ITV series of Bad Girls, and it featured a romance between prisoner Nikki Wade and Wing Governor Helen Stewart, and there was even a lesbian kiss in it, which was, when you think this was 2007, so what, they were 10 years ago, that was quite revolutionary at the time. But when you look at the huge amount of gay characters, gay male characters in musicals, you know, you've got songs like Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, you've got La Cage aux Folles, you've got plays such as like Angels in America, which deals with the AIDS crisis and things like that. But it's all gay men. There's nothing about gay women, which is, it's a little bit. Some have described lesbians in theatre as the black sheep of musical theatre and of theatre as a whole. But one of the earliest musicals that showed an explicit romantic connection between two women was Aspects of Love, which is also going to be on in Manchester at the Hope Mill Theatre a little bit later this year. Little plug there. It appeared at the West End in 1989 and on Broadway a year later. And Rose and Gilletta, the two primary heterosexual female leads, shared a kiss and possibly more, depending on the hopefulness of your imagination. However, the kiss occurred partly for the benefit of George, Rose's husband, and Gillette's lover. In addition, their dialogue was one short moment in a show focused on the numerous love affairs with men. So it is, although they have been described as being a lesbian kiss in a musical, it's not explicitly said that was a lesbian kiss. So some of the reasons why I think there aren't a lot of shows featuring lesbian characters on Broadway and in the West End is because they're expensive to put on and very rarely make a lot of money. Most Broadway shows lose money, so writers and producers try to appeal to the broadest possible audience in hope of trying to achieve a mega hit status. I mean, hitting it big is one way to survive with musical theatre, and it's often been said you can't make a living, but you can make a killing. But the financial pressures may be one of the reasons, and another factor may be that few lesbian characters appear in musicals because few lesbian writers actually write mainstream musicals. It may be down to a lack of lesbians who have the desire or talent to write musicals, or it may be the producers are unwilling to risk the high capital of female writers. I mean, there are a lot of productions done in fringe theatres, so if you go to little off-West End theatres, you do get a lot of gay characters and gay women portrayed in musicals, but it's not in the mainstream.
This is KCC Live.
Hi, welcome back. You're listening to Amy on Out There on KCC Live. Thank you so much, Stay Richie, for giving us an insight into lesbian visibility in the theatre world. I had no idea there were so many LGBT plus characters, especially lesbians, in the theatre world. It definitely sounds like we could do with some more, though, a bit more representation. So I found another news article and I thought we'd talk a little bit about lesbianism around the world. It's not as cut and dry as it seems to be in the UK, where, yeah, okay, there may still be homophobia and stuff, but at least the law should be on your side. It's not like that all over the world. So this was a Guardian news article, and this is what it had to say. It said, gay rights around the world, the best and worst countries for equality. Equal marriage laws are being passed in several countries, but in Russia, life grows harsher for each month for LGBT people, which places a best and worst for gay rights. It says we have a US president who supports gay marriage, and now a pope who, if not exactly signing up to equality for all, is at least starting to talk in languages less inflammatory than his predecessor. If someone is gay and he searches for the Lord and his goodwill, who am I to judge? He told an assembled group of journalists in the Papal plane back from his tour of Brazil. Then he went on to criticise the gay lobby and said he wasn't going to break with the cateism that said homosexual acts are intrinsically disorientated. Still, For a brief moment, it will look like a minor breakthrough. Then you weigh in against the raft of anti-homosexuality legislation that is coming into force in countries across the world. In Russia, gay teenagers are being tortured and forcibly outed on the internet against a backdrop of laws that look completely out of step with the rest of Europe. In what is being described as rolling the status of LGBT people back to the Stalin era, President Putin has passed a number of anti-gay laws, including legislation that punishes people and groups that distribute information. Considered propaganda for non-traditional sexual relations, the country also now has powers to arrest and detain foreign citizens believed to be gay or pro-gay. It has led to the boycott of Russian vodka brands by gay bars and clubs in solidarity, started by writer and activist Dan Savage and taken up by bars in London. I must admit I had not actually heard anything about this, so this is interesting for me as well. In many African countries where homosexuality is already illegal, more draconian anti-gay laws are being passed and violence against LGBT people is increasing. There's a link between growing rights in some countries and worsening or removal of rights in others. There are really complicated links between the two. If you look at the history of the advancement of LGBT rights in the UK, every advance is accompanied by a backlash, says Alistair Stewart, Assistant Director of the Kaleidoscope Trust, a UK-based organisation that supports international LGBT rights. To a certain extent, that's happening on a global scale now. The advances that are being made in some parts of the world encourage a backlash in other parts of the world. The struggle for even basic human rights for LGBT people, freedom of association, freedom from violence, becomes harder to achieve when the opponents can point something like gay marriage, which isn't even on the books in most of the countries we're talking about, and make the argument that if we give these people even the most basic of human rights, next they'll be asking us to get married in our churches. Jonathan Cooper, Chief Executive of the Human Dignity Trust, is less sure that they are related. The further persecution is already happening. I must admit, I can see how that could cause people to then pass the anti-LGBT rights if they feel strongly and vehemently that they don't believe people should be allowed to be married if they're LGBT. I disagree with them, but I can understand where they're coming from. So the article goes on to say, where are LGBT rights improving? Parts of Latin America remain the standard for equality for LGBT rights. Argentina's Gender Identity Law 2012 allowed the change of gender on birth certificates for transgender people. It also legalised same-sex marriage in 2010, giving same-sex couples the same right as opposite-sex couples, including the right to adopt children. Uruguay and Mexico City also allow equal marriage and adoption, and last week Colombia recognised its first legal same-sex civil union. Not quite marriage, but definitely getting there. In Asia, LGBT groups are making progress, if slowly. Last year, Vietnam saw its first gay pride rally, and the year's event will launch a campaign for equality in employment. On Tuesday, it was reported that the country's Ministry of Justice has backed plans to legalise gay marriage after the Ministry of Health came out for marriage equality in April. In Singapore, the Pink Dot Pride Rally attracted 21,000 people at the end of June, its biggest number since it started 4 years ago. The Human Dignity Trust filed a suit at the European Court of Human Rights against Turkish-occupied Northern Cyprus, the only place in Europe where homosexuality is still illegal, and looks likely to win. A letter sent to Kaleidoscope Trust, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago expressed her wish to repeal the laws that ban homosexuality. The Prime Minister of Jamaica, Portia Simpson Miller, has voiced similar wishes. In June, Javed Jangay was the latest activist to launch legal proceedings to challenge the anti-sodomy laws. However, violence against gay people is increasing, and 17-year-old Dwayne Jones was stabbed to death last week at a party, according to local media reports. In Malawi, the President, Joyce Banda, announced in 2012 that laws criminalising homosexuality would be repealed. She has since distanced herself from that, although there has been a memorandum that there have been no prosecutions. So it's not just the global north where things are moving forward. In some parts of the world where you'd least expect them, things are getting better, says Stewart. The number of countries legalising same-sex marriage continues to grow, with Denmark, Brazil, France and New Zealand just some of them that join more progressive countries that have legalised it earlier. Last month in the US, where Barack Obama publicly supports equal marriage and is legal in several states, the Supreme Court struck down the Defense of Marriage Act, which prevented the federal government from recognising marriages between gay couples as unconstitutional. And of course, England and Wales now has the Marriage Same-Sex Couples Act. I will add that this is an older Guardian as well. Obviously, it's now President Trump in the White House, and he is not as pro-LGBT as Obama was, which is quite unfortunate. However, people in America do have decent rights for being LGBT, and there are some parts of America that are very, very progressive and very open, and that's how, in my opinion, the rest of the world should be. Anyway, stay tuned because there's more after this song. We will be talking about different organisations that are there for young lesbian people and just lesbian people in general, and in LGBT people in general as well. So more after this song.
This is KCC Live.
Hi, welcome back to our show on Lesbian Visibility on Out There on KCC Live. You're listening to Amy. It's come to the end of our show now. Just before I do go, I just wanted to make a quick note for anybody who is struggling at the moment with their sexuality or themselves. There are charities and help out there. So you can visit Stonewall. There's the LGBT Foundation. You can go to Befrienders. There's also Samaritans. And for younger people, there's YPAS as well, which is the Young Person Advisory Association. They are fantastic as well for young people. They do so much good. And for people struggling with their gender identity, for younger children as well, there's Mermaids. They can also help. If you have a little Google, you will find those and the information there. And I will also put them up on our Facebook page. If you search us on Facebook Out There, our picture's like a rainbow flag, and you can like that on Facebook. You can also email me, amy@kcclive.com. If you've got any show suggestions or you want to get involved, get in touch. Thanks for listening. Speak to you next time, guys.
This is KCC Live.